All right, everyone, welcome back to the Midnight Magic Musings channel. I am still your humble host, the Lord Cephas. I'm actually flying solo this week. No Broken Ansible, no Earl of Florida, no Lady Cephas. It's just little old me, and this is Midnight Magic Musings, episode number 38. All right, well, since I'm flying solo, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I would like to thank everyone who has clicked the like button or subscribed to what we do here on the channel. We've grown our membership to 341, which for a small channel like us, that's a really big deal. We appreciate everyone who's clicked like and subscribe, sharing out our videos on social media with their friends. If you like them, share them out. If you don't like them, hey, share them out too. You can hate watch it. Doesn't hurt our feelings any. We update the channel almost every day with dad jokes and all kinds of weirdness that we do. And so that's what we do here on the Midnight Magic Musings channel. And I want to jump right into our main topic. This is going to be a bit of an overtime where I bounce around a little bit because, again, I am here by myself. All right. First thing I wanted to talk about, there was a report out this week from Forbes magazine that Bob Iger has pulled the plug on several Marvel projects. The first one being The Eternals. Now, for those of you who remember, The Eternals came out during COVID. It did not do very well. It made about 402 million at the worldwide box office. And so, as it stands right now, The Eternals 2 is on the back burner, probably not going to be made. In addition to that, remember Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, major failure at the box office last year. It only made 476 million worldwide. It is also now cut. There will be no Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. Well, I guess no, that would actually be Ant-Man. That'd actually be Ant-Man 4, 5, I guess. Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. And then we also have the Marvels. There will be no Captain Marvel 3, if you will. They are putting that away. Now, if you remember, the Marvels came out and you could make the argument really signaled some of the issues that Disney was having. Now, a lot of people, voices online have said, hey, there are problems going on. Hey, you need to change this. You need to cut back on the budgets. And that movie made $206 million worldwide off a $200 plus million budget. So it lost a significant amount of money. All three movies that I just mentioned lost significant amounts of money. And by the way, just to correct myself, it would be the fourth installment of the Ant-Man franchise. But it's not just movies that Disney is pulling back on from Marvel. It's also television series. You look at Secret Invasion, which cost over $200 million to make, was the lowest rated TV series in Disney Plus history on the Marvel side. It actually bumped off Miss Marvel, which I actually liked very, very much, off the pedestal for being the lowest rated series. And so that one probably set off some concern there in Burbank that, hey, we can't keep churning out content like this, spending this kind of money, and getting no return for it. I really do believe that's why you're seeing more shows being made like Echo. Remember, Echo wasn't going to be released. It was just going to quietly go away, but they released it anyway. Why? To be honest, it's a little bit cheaper content. It was already filmed. They had to do something with it, and they did. I think you're going to see more of a street level type show on Disney Plus. I think that's what they're doing with Daredevil. They're retooling it after filming 6 episodes, and then realizing, oh, this is bad, so we need to retool it. Now, how will the retooling go? Well, that remains to be seen. How well those things are going to go, but we're not going to start seeing sequels being churned out just because. And if you think about it, they're getting ready to launch the Fantastic Four. Finally, they're getting ready to launch the X-Men. Finally, you have Deadpool and Wolverine coming out here in a couple of months. A lot of pressure on that movie to do well, and I actually think that it will be a box office hit for Disney Marvel. But when you're gearing up with those two tentpole franchises, you cannot be weighed down by all these other franchises that are starting to sink. I mean, you've still got Spider-Man. You don't own it. You lease it from Sony, but you still have that. You still have Captain America. Now, how well will it do with Falcon playing Captain America? I really don't know how Captain America Brave New World is going to go. Gun to my head, I don't think it's going to go very well because they're having to do massive reshoots and rewrites. Now, that's not unusual for Marvel. They do lots of rewrites. They do lots of reshoots. but sometimes you can tell when it was done and how bad it was. For example, the Marvels, you can tell that was reshot, and you're like, the story that we had was not the story that we got. I'm not saying the one we would have had would have been better than the one we got, which I describe as a fever dream. Trying to watch and understand that particular movie. If you enjoyed it, hey, good for you. I'm glad you did. Lady Cephas enjoyed it. Her and my baby girls enjoyed it. I didn't. I was completely lost by the whole thing and bored pretty significantly. But Disney Plus has not grown in subscribership. In fact, it's shrunk quite a bit. And now Disney's thinking about, hey, how much money can we really put into this to keep losing? Because remember, they wanted Disney Plus to be profitable by the end of 2024. That gives you what, 8 months? It's not looking good unless you start doing a lot of creative math and start moving a bunch of numbers around on the ledger. We'll see what happens with that. Other things to consider is Marvel does have other series coming on Disney Plus later this year. They've got Agatha dropping later this year. I don't see that being a huge success. Say what you want about WandaVision. A lot of people liked it. Some people didn't. Hey, whichever side you fall on, that's great. But the reality of it is, it wasn't that watched. Because if it was, Tiana Paris, who played in WandaVision, she was also in the Marvels. A lot of people coming out of the movie said they had no idea who the Marvels, plural, were. They knew Captain Marvel. They didn't know Miss Marvel. They didn't know this other character, which actually got stranded in another universe, which is another issue in and of itself. People didn't know who they were, which means not enough people were watching your series. And that's a real problem for Disney. How do they get around that? Well, I think you have to get characters and write shows that are actually good and characters people want. For example, She-Hulk. They admitted, and it was Tatiana Maslany who was the star of that show. She admitted they blew the budget on effects. And if you watch the series, you realize the effects were not that good to begin with. But they blew their entire budget. They've announced in the last week that Agatha's coming out, and she's a spinoff from the WandaVision series. But again, I have to ask you, if you have a series that really wasn't well watched, how is spinning off a not a B character, but a C or a D character from the comics really going to impact the fan base and rally them to want to support that show? Again, I think this one is doomed to fail on arrival. It may be a fine show, but I'm telling you now, there is no buzz. There is not a lot of interest. And I think there's such a negativity in fandom anyway, but now you're giving people the bait. Say, here's a show that no one really knows about. No one's probably going to enjoy. Here you go. And you know how that's going to be received. On top of that, Disney's churned out some real stinkers for a while now. I like Shang-Chi. I really did. It didn't do well at the movie theaters. Again, it was in the COVID era, but it didn't make any money. Are they going to do a Shang-Chi 2? Probably are in 25, 26. I would expect them to have some news on that here shortly. But again, can that reinvigorate Marvel? I don't know. I guess the question I would ask of everybody, is Marvel at the point now where it's beyond being reinvigorated? Because they've suffered so many body blows. They've suffered so many losses that can they actually bounce back from that? All right, next topic I want to talk about is Star Wars. There was a report out today by Discussing Film that Star Wars had made something like $12 billion on Star Wars, but they only spent like $4 billion. And what a great return that was. But you know what they didn't talk about in that article? How much money they've spent. For example, they spent well over $1 billion on the sequel trilogies. How much money did they actually make versus how much they spent? Well, if you look at the SEC filings, it wasn't as much as you think it was. In fact, depending on how you read the numbers, they probably spent somewhere between $1.5 billion and $2 billion on the sequel trilogy. That's way too much money to be breaking even or not to be making a significant amount of money. They didn't mention anything about Galaxy's Edge, which is at both the Disney parks in Orlando and out in California. Those are well over $1 billion spent on those. And by the way, I walked on the other day onto Smuggler's Run without any wait, without any issue. There was no. Now listen, it's spring break time. Parks are going to be full. Things are going to be backed up. People buying the Genie Plus. I do understand it. But during normal times, of the week, it's not as full. People take videos and they show them, they live stream them. Where are the people? So they've spent money on that. Remember, they had the immersive experience where you had the Galaxy Star Cruiser, where you were going to be inside this building and it was a hotel, and you had this immersive experience that was thousands and thousands of dollars, and people didn't go. Not because I wouldn't have gone, but because I can't afford to go and I'm not saving up for that. I have other bills and expenses to pay. I'll leave that for everybody else. The problem is there wasn't enough everybody else to actually go ride or go visit that attraction. There's $700 million that no longer are in the coffers. And you start adding up the money and you realize very quickly, yes, Disney may have grossed this money, but you got to take out the expenses and the losses to truly see what is the actual number that they had. They announced this week, more than likely, there will be no more Obi-Wan Kenobi. There will not be a season number 2. The reason we know that is because they released, remember, they didn't want to release physical media. They released The Mandalorian, season 3, and it's termed season 3. But if you look at the Obi-Wan series on its release, it says the complete season, or the complete series, rather. It's not season 1, which leads me to believe that they're probably not going to come back with a season 2. The ratings, probably not what they wanted. But again, what do you think you're going to get? Do you think people go out of their way to watch a 1-hour series on Disney Plus? Star Wars is a franchise that belongs in movie theaters. Marvel is a franchise that belongs in the movie theaters, on the big screen, an immersive experience for you to go and watch and enjoy. I can stream anything at home, but it loses something watching it at home versus going to the theaters. But here's where I'm at as a fan. I'm not going to the theaters. I didn't go see Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. I didn't go to the theaters and watch it. I waited for it to come on Disney Plus. I did not go see the Marvels. I watched it on Disney Plus. Actually, I fell asleep first time through it. I had to go back and watch the last half of it to see what I missed. A lot of these series, people are just skipping. And then when you try to tie them into a movie, you come to find out you're not getting the return on investment that you need. Not to mention the fact that you have a lot of hemorrhaging of subscribers from Disney Plus. And so what we're saying is Disney struggling, and that struggle doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. They're in a very nasty proxy fight for seats on the board of directors with Nelson Peltz and Bob Iger. That votes, we'll have the results of that in the next couple of weeks. There's a lot of internal pressure, but I'm going to give Bob Iger credit on this one. He's making the right call. These low-hanging fruit movies that the first one didn't do well, why would you make a second movie? I mean, let's just be honest. Why would you make a movie about a movie or based on a movie that was not a hit? Now, look, we live in a world where everything is a franchise. Everything is a universe, right? We're big fans of The Walking Dead. Anyone who watches our channel knows Lady Cephas and I love The Walking Dead. Right now, we're watching The Ones Who Live. That's the Rick and Michonne series. And that's my next topic here. Going into this series, I didn't think much of it. I thought it was a silly idea. Why would I care about this? Michonne up and left her kids with Uncle Daryl, I guess, to go find this man she loved. He's been gone at this point in the series, I believe, around 10 years, 11 years. How could this be any good? And I got to tell you, I have been extremely surprised by how good the first 3 episodes have been. Lady Cephas and I will do a series wrap up at the end. Of course, episode 4 will drop this weekend. We're coming up on the weekend of March 15th, 16th, and 17th. So that's episode 4. I think it's going to be really, really good. But it just amazes me that everything is being built based on a universe. Now, you got to remember, I'm a child of the 80s, right? Everything was not a universe. You had plenty of one-off movies. And then you had some movies that were big hits that had sequels. For example, Back to the Future had 2 sequels. Had 2 sequels. You have the horror franchises, which have always done very, very well. You had Nightmare on Elm Street. You had Friday the 13th. You had all these movies that kept going and going and going. You could argue they went too long, but you know what? For the most part, they made money. And so some of those grew organically. Everything wasn't meant to be a franchise. Everything wasn't meant to be a series of movies. And now we're at the point where everything is a series of movies. And now we're asking, how can we, actually get television to tie into that. Now, that's my next topic because, for years you were looked down on if you went from movies to television. I remember Chris O'Donnell, who starred in NCIS Los Angeles. I remember when he was announced as the star, everybody kind of hung their head and said, "Well, he's done as a major star." Now you have major stars on streaming series and on television series. You've got Harrison Ford on 1923. You had Tim McGraw and Faith Hill on 1883. Kevin Costner, Yellowstone. One day maybe we'll get the last half of season 5 and know what actually happens there. So it's not the curse or the death knell to have big name stars to be on television programs or to be on streaming shows. I guess they'll all be classified as television programs, even if they're streaming. But we're running into a situation where you have to ask yourself, what is the return of investment on what these shows are generating? Yellowstone became a cultural phenomenon, has been. Now, that started to wane quite a bit because there's no season 5 finish. We don't know how the story's going to end, even though we have a pretty good idea. But even during the writer's strike, if you'll notice, the Yellowstone episodes on CBS, they were airing several of them on a Sunday night, were doing great numbers. And maybe that's because people don't have Paramount Plus. They didn't see it in its first run, so they were able to see these episodes in their second run. And we'll see if that creates a following where you have increased viewership if and when the last half of season 5 comes out, or if the viewership stays the same, or if it starts to drag a little bit. And speaking of ratings and whether they're going to increase or want to drag, I want to talk a little bit about some of the shows that have come back after the 6-month plus hiatus where you didn't have any new shows coming on. It's interesting because some of the shows are holding pretty steady. Now, Lady Cephas and I, we're getting older. We're big fans of NCIS. So I did look it up. And right now they're averaging over 10 million viewers an episode, which is something they weren't able to do last year before the strike. And this year they're doing, obviously it's an abbreviated season, only like 13 episodes, but there is still an appetite for several of these shows. You've got Law & Order SVU, which is literally in its 25th season, but it's still having great ratings, which actually, and it's not just on, let's say, NBC, it's on Peacock, which is doing great numbers in streaming. Then I would just give honorable mention to Tracker, who stars Justin Hartley, who was the original Oliver Queen. If you get that reference, he was Oliver Queen on Smallville all those years ago, long before there was a Stephen Amell. But his show right now, Tracker, is on pace to be the most watched series, if you take out sports, on broadcast network TV this season. Now, he had his first episode following the Super Bowl, but even if you don't calculate those numbers, the premiere had over 20 million viewers in a 7-day period of time, and it's averaging over 10 million per episode. It's really amazing what they're doing. And I'd also mention Young Sheldon. We're fans of The Big Bang Theory. We went all 12 seasons. We're in season 7 of Young Sheldon. It's the final season. They're averaging just under 10 million viewers, which is up about 2%. And it's on pace to finish as the most watched comedy on television. Now, here's something interesting. It's been the most watched comedy on television for the last 4 years. It may not seem like a lot to you, but remember, Big Bang Theory was the number 1 comedy for 8 of its 12 seasons. And so it's definitely following in line with that. It's actually a little bit ahead of where it was last season. And if you got the information, maybe you heard, maybe you didn't, but they're continuing the Young Sheldon franchise, the universe of The Big Bang Theory, with a spinoff. Georgie's going to get a spinoff, but I guess about raising his child. So good for them. I'm glad they have that opportunity, but they're going to keep the franchise alive in different iterations, which, again, perfectly fine. You've got a built-in fan base. You know what? I hate to say it, but you know what? Milk the diehards as long as you can, because that's how the revenue is going to be generated. It's also doing well on Paramount Plus as well. So I was curious, how would some of these shows do when they came back? A lot of them are doing extremely well, either on par with where they were or actually up several percent. I mentioned NCIS just a few moments ago. They are actually up about 4% over where they were the start of the 22-23 season. So far, this section of the season is off to a really good start. So we'll see if they are able to continue with that. And I have one more topic that I do want to mention. It's very personal to me. One of the reasons we've not done any recordings the last month is because we've been dealing with a terminal diagnosis for Lady Cephas' mother, and unfortunately she passed away. And 2 weeks ago tomorrow, as I record this is March 14th, late on a Thursday night. It literally is Midnight Magic Musings. It will be 2 weeks tomorrow that we had her service. I had the honor of leading that service. Anyone who's listened to us for a long period of time know that the Earl and I we were raised in church. We have deeply held spiritual beliefs about heaven and the afterlife. We don't doubt where she is, but it's very difficult when you lose someone that close and you see them suffer so hard and struggle so hard. She leaves behind my father-in-law, who will be 88 in a couple of months, and after being married 62 years, he's lost without her. And I can't even imagine what that must be like. And what I would say to you as we're kind of wrapping up here, again, it's an abbreviated version of the episode, but I wanted to do something, is love the people that you love. And by that I mean, don't tell them you love them, only show them. Hug somebody today. Tell them you love them. Look them in the eyes and tell them how much you appreciate them. Tell them what they mean to you. You know what? Text that person you've been meaning to text. Call that person you've been meaning to call. If they don't like calls, text them. Facebook message them. Snap them. Whatever it is you need to do. Because you know what? Tomorrow is not promised for anyone. And the last thing you want to live with is regrets that I didn't reach out to those people when I had an opportunity. I know it's not the exciting crescendo maybe that you were looking for as we're winding down the episode, but that's a true behind the scenes view of what's been going on here in the Midnight Magic Musings family. I was very honored. The Earl came down from his town to be there with us. Obviously, Lady Cephas was there with me, and even Broken Ansible, who lives in another state, was kind enough to come and share and be there as a shoulder to cry on and love on. And so to everyone in the Midnight Magic Musings family who came and supported us, I love you all. I appreciate every one of you, and I hope that I convey that to you in a way that you can feel it and that you can understand the depth of the love that we have for each and every one of you. Last thing we'll do here is a reminder that next week, hopefully the Earl and I will be able to record because it's March Madness time. Right now, the conference tournaments are taking place. Teams are jockeying for seeds in the NCIS tournament. Now, last year, the Earl did beat me in his bracketology. Unfortunately, Houston let me down in the Sweet 16. Otherwise, I probably would have won, but that's okay. Well, you know what? I'm riding Houston again this year as they fight their way through their Big 12 tournament. Looking very strong to get a number one seed come Sunday, which is going to be Selection Sunday. So we'll see how all that turns out. But we will be doing bracketology here on the channel because, as you know, the Earl and I like to bet food with one another. Right now, our bets have canceled each other out. So here's a new opportunity to see if maybe, just maybe, I can get up on in this one. Right now, we're tied, but this would be my opportunity to possibly get some food or at least get some bragging rights on top of him. Well, this has been Midnight Magic Musings, episode 38. Again, an abbreviated version, but we definitely wanted to come on and share with our loyal listeners and viewers what's been going on. If you like the content that you heard today, again, a bit abbreviated, I'm here by myself. Click the like button if you would. It really does mean a lot to us. It also helps us with YouTube. They push it out to more people. Click subscribe if you've not done so. Again, that just helps us with that ever-changing, ever-evolving algorithm that I get all the emails about a couple of times a week. And then share this out with people you think might enjoy it. If you agree with our opinions, hey, leave us a comment. Let us know. If you disagree with our comments, leave us a comment and let us know. If you like what we do, share it with the people that you love. If you don't like what we do, well, find somebody maybe you don't like as much and share it with them. And then they too cannot like it as well. Now, I say that in jest. All kidding aside, we appreciate everyone who listens, everyone who watches when we have live video, everyone who participates, leaves a comment, gives us a critique or a feedback. We take it all very seriously. Well, as seriously as we can, and we try to strive to do even better. So, on behalf of Lady Cephas, on behalf of the Earl of Florida, on behalf of Broken Ansible, I am simply your humble host, the Lord Cephas. This has been Midnight Magic Musings, episode number 38. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will see you again next week. So long, everyone.